Om Shanti. Good morning to everyone. Oh, you're okay? Translation okay? Good. The theme of our sharing, being a constant server. And this is a life of service, a life of sacrifice, a life of joy. You know, even scientifically they say that when somebody is helping others or doing something that is selfless, that's not actually for a selfish motive, then even the patterns in the brain change and there's more happiness within. And I think all of us experience that whenever we feel we've been an instrument to bring happiness to someone, to show kindness, to uplift someone, to share some tools of gyan that enables someone to make their life special. I think for all of us, when we feel we've been an instrument in some way, we feel very happy inside. Is that right? And I remember once asking Daddy Janki that, you know, yes, you serve, you see others are happy, and you then take a share of that happiness. Is that right? And she gave me an interesting answer, which I've probably repeated here before, but maybe you don't remember. But she gave me an interesting answer. She said, well, if you serve others and then you feel happy seeing their happiness, then you're earning commission, right? A commission on what they have. When are you going to earn your capital earning? Right? You know the difference? Commission, capital. And of course the capital earning, then she explained, is when I myself create a powerful elevated stage through which service can happen. But that's my capital earning, my direct earning from Baba, not the indirect commission through service. And that was many years ago that Daddy explained that to me. And I've remembered it very often. And it's taken me time to come to that point where I've really understood that deeply and also been able to really practice it in my life. And when I think about being a constant server, I think we have to look no further than our daddies. And our daddies are getting fewer and fewer. Our daddies are very precious. You all know Daddy Janki, and she'll be back on the 27th. And you imagine at the age of 93, within a few hours' notice, literally a few hours, she's on the road to Ahmedabad and flying off to the Middle East. And I was very amused because Daddy Gulzar, as you know, was a little unwell. She's much better now. And it was her program to go. And then she phoned Daddy to say, I can't really travel, you go. And I thought, you know, here's an 85-year-old telling a 93-year-old, you go. A bit like two kids, I can't go, you go. And Daddy saying, okay, I'll go today, I'll go tonight. How many of us can just pack up and go? And but it's not so much the physical thing of packing up and going. Yeah, anybody can do that. But you have to have the mindset. You have to have the attitude. You have to have the inner strength that can say, that's okay, drop this, do that. Because of being a constant server. And when I've seen the daddies, and I know I have that fortune to have seen the daddies very closely, I've seen them first thing in the morning. I've seen them when they're getting ready for the Murli. I've seen them when they're going to bed at night. I've seen them when they're asleep. And there's very little time when they're actually alone. Now, how many of us, actually I have to say I'm lucky in that I've never gone to Daddy and said, I need my own space, I need my own room. Somehow I've just got those scars that I'm happy to be around people. But I know there are many, and I understand it. Well, I need a little space, I need my own room, I need... And for the daddies in their whole life, they've just never been alone, physically. Imagine that. Think about it. And, from morning till night, there are people there, but it's not just that people are there, they're people who are there to be served. They're expecting something. So that's something to witness. And I know being in Baba's house, being a server, you can't have time to yourself. Even if, you go for your shower, there'll be somebody knocking on the door saying, there's a phone call. I'm in the shower. But of course, it's the attitude. What creates that attitude of being a constant server? Because, as I said, it's not just about being physically present. But there's a lot of renunciation involved. But that renunciation isn't a renunciation that's a question of strain or, struggle. I remember once being in front of Baba, and Baba saying this line, your renunciation is no less. And I really thought, what have I renounced? I really got that thought. I thought, oh, Baba's saying that, but what have I renounced? Because at every step of the way, when we're aware of what our lives are becoming, what Baba's making of our lives, then it's not a question of renunciation, but a question of a great gift of life that Baba's giving us. And it's not just that we, of course, share through or serve through the sharing of Gyan. I was telling a story a little earlier when I met the BKs from Europe and the UK, because someone was asking about this. And it was interesting being in this conference, or I don't know what you call it. It was a bit more of a conference, more like a forum. Must have been now in the 80s. And in a beautiful setting in Luxembourg in the Ardennes forest. And myself and Sister Wendy from Italy were there. And we were there, it was a conference based on the original vision of the person who had the vision for the European Union, which is, and of course the vision has changed quite a bit today, but that original vision was quite a spiritual vision actually. And so there was somebody in particular who wanted to keep that vision alive, and so every year he would do these gatherings, and I really don't know if they're still going on. He actually came to Mudderburn afterwards as well. And we were there, and we had our lifestyle, we had our white clothes, we had our little dinner plate of, a little bit of salad and fruit and lots of meat around, the scenario. I'm sure you've all been on service where you have to sit amongst all this other kind of food and you're sitting there with your little piece of lettuce. And of course people are very curious. It's a great talking point. You're not eating this, you're not eating that, why? And every so often I'd sort of get up and speak about values and how values are important and they can't be changed without values. The change has to come from within, the kind of message that we give. And especially in the 80s, and I remember going to UN things as well, people really weren't in any mood to listen to that message. Now people listen much more. I can't say that they act on it, but at least they listen. And at least often they nod and agree with you. And then things carry on. But in those days they'd sort of pat you on the head, Okay, you said your little bit, now let's get on with the real business. And the last day was about economics, and I thought, am I going to get up and say something? Because I know, and you know now, it's very well publicized because of the environmental issues. But in terms of economics, a vegetarian diet makes a lot of sense. And if less people ate meat, a lot more people could be fed because of all the grain that goes and the water to feed the cattle, etc. And the statistics are quite startling, actually. I can't reel them off, but I'm sure you can look them up. And I thought, well, let me stay quiet for a while. And then somebody else stood up and said, you know, we're all talking about these things and what the solution should be. But look at these little sisters. Not that little, but, you know. Look at these little sisters. They're doing it. Have you been watching them over the last few days? It was towards the end of this gathering. And we just sat and smiled and didn't have to say a word. And, you know, that was a very beautiful thing because your life speaks. I don't think any of us realize sometimes how much our life speaks to others. We just think we're moving along, doing what we have to do. And we have our struggles, we know we do. But yet when people see us, what do they see in us? And you'll know, especially probably with your family members, I know with my family, and I've been lucky that I've always had support from my family, a little bit of puzzlement at the beginning, but more or less support, and a lot of support later on. But they see that we're consistent in what we're doing. That's a very big thing. You know, people have fads, don't they? You do something for a few months, a few years, and then you change. But people see that we're consistently following a lifestyle which to the world out there is not an easy lifestyle, but to us it's natural. Getting up early, our daily study, the way we try to put virtues into practice in our life, our diet, etc., etc. And you know, people come to respect it. You may not realize, but people come to respect it. And you know how you know? Whenever there's a problem, watch who they come to. I was amazed that now this is about 3 years ago, so I'd been 30 years in Gyan then. And my brother has always been fine, never said anything. But he's always been a bit wary of what I was doing. We've been friendly, no problem, but he's never really asked me what I do. Imagine, in 30 years. My parents, my sister, yeah, fine, and they know a lot. My brother probably knows, but never really asked me. That's it, we're just 3 in the family. He called me one day. He had a problem. It was something his daughter was going through. And he said, the only person I can think to call is you. I nearly, literally dropped on the floor. And then he spoke to me, told me, and just from Baba's Gyan and all the things Baba teaches us, I was able to give him an answer. I mean, I won't share the detail, it's a family thing. I was able to give him an answer, and I was able to actually reassure him about something. Because he was actually asking me from a religious perspective, my view of this. And, you know, it really struck me. I thought, you know, after all these years, and you'll find the same thing happening. People see your life, so you become a kind of safety net for them. I'm telling this story because sometimes we do not realize what we do for others. Sometimes we think that, well, I'm ordinary, or, you know, we have that commentary of weak thoughts going on inside. Who knows about that commentary? Who doesn't know about that commentary? Happens to all of us. We don't realize the impact that our life is having on others. And whether we like it or not, we are constant service. And so, to bridge that gap between what we're actually doing and being aware of what we're doing, that's what we need to do. I just need that awareness that this is what my life is. It's a life of constant service, and I actually cannot avoid it. And of course now, once we become more consciously aware that because I belong to Baba, this is what my life is. Whether I'm, doing the work in the office, whether I'm sharing gyan, whether I'm brushing my teeth, literally. People observe us. I'm sure many, especially coming back to family things, people have often told me if they get a little angry or something, even though their family may not be particularly positive, but as soon as they get a bit angry, they say, "What happened to your meditation?" Because, like it or not, even though they will ridicule us or whatever, somehow they want us to be good. It's a sort of safety net for them. At least there's somebody. Yeah, you recognize that. It's a really beautiful thing. And I think what Baba has made our life like, it's incredible. So whether we like it or not, at every step we are servers. Because our vibrations are serving, and we all know Baba teaches us about vibrations and how our vibrations create the atmosphere. And now this is where, once we become more consciously aware, we then say to Baba, "Okay, Baba, what is it that I have to do to really fulfill your hopes in me as a constant server?" And this is where I know was asked the question, well, how do you balance study, Baba's study, work life? Sometimes, have you seen, I'm sure you've all seen those, what do you call them? I don't know, performers, where they have 10 plates spinning on poles. Have you seen it? And they spin them, and then one fault is they run and spin that, and they keep them spinning, running back and forth. And sometimes when you've got so many different things, it feels a bit like that. And inevitably one plate or another drops. But actually there's a very easy method to keep them spinning. And that's to come back to the awareness within yourself. Because I don't have to be different people with different awarenesses for all those plates. I'm the same person. That's the key. And whether I'm doing my Lokik study, whether I'm with my Lokik family, whether I'm at the centre, whether I'm working, whatever it is, who am I? I am what Baba has made me. And what is my awareness? To be a server. That's it. And so actually it almost doesn't matter what you do. In other words, you can be doing anything, but you bring this consciousness to it and you won't feel that your life is divided up into pieces. Because you are there. And Baba is Karan Karavan Har for us, as Baba said today. Whatever we're doing. It's not that when we're sharing Gyan, Baba's Karan Karavan Har, and then when you go to cook in the kitchen, he's gone away, or when you go to do your studies, he's gone somewhere else. I can keep that consciousness always with me. Because Karan Karavan Har, yes, the one who inspires and works through others, and the one who does. And I love Dadi Gozar's definition of Karan Karavan Har. She says, the definition is, Baba inspires and we do the work. But if I'm doing something I call Lokik, and I really think that whatever Brahmins do, nothing's Lokik. It's all alokik because of who we are. But okay, I label it Lokik. Yes, Baba's not going to come and answer my exam papers for me. I have to do that. I have to study. But if I'm in that awareness of being Now all the different awarenesses, and Baba has given us so many drills in the past. The Brahmin, the angel, the incorporeal, the drill now Baba's given us. Then my mind will be very clear. I will know exactly what is needed, even in that lokik situation. And I'll be able to do what is needed with the least expenditure of energy. And in that situation, Baba's Karan Karavan Har, not necessarily doing the work, but enabling me to have the right consciousness and awareness in everything that I'm doing. And that's the key, awareness. And this, the Avyat Murli that we just heard, the revised Murli, if you remember on Sunday, was about keeping the powerful form of awareness, of our power and everything we have gained from Baba. And today Baba said, yes, Maya makes you forget. Last few days Baba's been cautioning us about Maya. And those of you who were here on the 15th, or you heard or watched the Murli, how Baba gave us the drill, gave us the homework. Not an easy homework. Sorry, Baba, I shouldn't say that, should I? But very, very, homework to really pay attention to. And Baba's giving us that. At the same time, Baba's saying, beware, Maya's listening. But also what I found so interesting, Baba's saying, Maya knows that her time is coming to an end. So who's going to end Maya's time? I wish Baba would do it, but we have to do it. And of course this brings us to the other thing that Baba mentioned. Because if I'm now becoming aware, yes, my life is a life of service. I can't separate my life from service because of who I am. And you think of the 4 subjects we know: yoga, gyan, dharana, seva. So Daddy will always tell us, first get the 3 right, and the 4th is there automatically. And it's right. We have that powerful awareness, and we're connected with Baba. And being connected, why Baba gave us 2 types of drill? It's important. The incorporeal stage, the powerful stage, where really we can clean ourselves of the karmas of the past. Because one thing is being in the karmatit stage. This is my conscious awareness. And we see in the Dadis, and we saw in Dadiji, there was no effect of action on her. The soul moving along, free from the influence of action, the karmatit stage. Yet she had karmas of the past that had to be cleared. And so that powerful awareness of the incorporeal stage is what gives us the power to burn the karmas of the past. But why Baba then gives us the drill of the angelic stage? So that in our activity we make Baba present with us. The incorporeal stage is the stage to draw power. And it's immense power that can be taken in that stage. And the angelic stage is the stage where we give love. When we're lost in Baba's love, and that vibration of love is being shared in everything that we do. If you think about the memorials of angels, angels always bring good tidings, good news, right? It's Christmas time, and if you think about the stories of the angels who came and heralded the birth of Christ, and the 3 wise kings, the angels, the stars, Angels bring good tidings. Angels bring kindness. Angels are remembered for their love. In fact, there's a beautiful term. It comes in the Abrahamic scriptures, and I remember once when Daddy, many years ago, Daddy was talking about this term in Hindi, I think dayal, how you say it? Means mercy or compassion. And I actually said to Daddy, I said, Daddy, there's a word that I know from my own background in prayers. And in the prayers it talks about the loving kindness of God. You know that term? And she said, yes. And I love that term, the loving kindness of God, but also of those who are the right hands of God, the angels. And so the angelic form, the form of love. So Baba giving us that drill so that we can actually then make Baba present here so that we act with love. And I think another thing that I know has been very meaningful for me, Baba has always given us this promise, and this promise was yesterday, day before in the Murli. The whole promise, the whole equation of, and in the youth coordinators retreat they were making up equations. Actually, I'll tell you about that, very interesting. But the equation of my courage, my step of courage, and God's help to me many, many times over, and that this is God's promise to us, Baba's promise to us. Today I loved it, Baba saying, well, you promised me, I'm your slave, I'm your slave. Now I'm here to serve you. Now you fulfill your promise, I fulfill my promise, you fulfill your promise. And Baba's promise to us, our courage and his help. And, this is something very often I say to myself inside, have courage, it's okay, have courage. And then I remember, immediately I feel Baba's love coming to me. And, okay, courage to do something, but courage to leave aside the weaknesses, the weak thoughts, the fears, and courage to be in the stage Baba wants us to be. It's the internal courage that's the real courage. Because we're all carrying stuff from the past. Pain and sorrow and fear and, guilt and all of that. It's all there. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It takes a lot of courage to say, I don't need it. I can be new with Baba. And I know that in this birth I've had the sanskar of worrying, and still worry sometimes, not as much as I used to by far. But with worry it's like sometimes if you don't worry, then you worry because you don't worry. You worry that if you don't worry about something, you worry that something's going to happen. And how Baba's wanting to free us from all of these emotions that can suppress the soul, basically. And how Baba talked about the 4 forms of faith. Very, very powerful. And if I want to be a constant server, there's one thing I need to have, and Baba mentioned it in the Murli on the 15th, One thing I need to have. I need to have constant good wishes and pure feelings for the family, for everyone, but especially for my Brahmin family. And this is where the tests come, right? Baba told us. It's not just Baba told us to tell us something new, Baba was just confirming what we all know. This is where the tests come. This is where the challenges come. When you see the sanskaras. And, I actually said this to Nivebai, we were talking about it just shortly after the Murli. I said, but what do you do when, you see, okay, one thing is when people have their sanskars of struggle and they're giving themselves sorrow. But when you see people have sanskars which really consciously give other people sorrow, right? That's hard to see. And he said, look, everyone's playing their part. They have to. And I know sometimes, I think it's, I forget, one of the daddies saying, you know, for some people, it's almost like it's their religion to give sorrow. What do you do? If I don't have good wishes and pure... Now, this is my experience, and I had a very direct experience recently, seeing that there's a soul who really gives sorrow to others. And while I had that awareness of that, there was tension in the relationship. And I took sorrow. And this was now a few months back, when I really took that step of stopping those thoughts, of seeing that soul in that condition, and changing my thoughts so that I didn't think about the sanskars of that soul. Then the tension began to melt away. And so just thinking about the sanskars of another soul, and Baba said it very clearly, you think about the sanskars of another soul, you think about their bad sanskars, what happens to your sanskars? You become bad. Your sanskars become bad. It's very subtle because we think that, you know, we get very easily, and it's very subtle, into this form of judging. When we are thinking in any way about the negative sanskars of another soul, and it's very subtle the way we slip into that thinking, then we're slipping into that form of judgment. And we can never then help that soul to reform. We can never give the good wishes and pure feelings that are needed. And I remember once somebody calling me and saying, you know, there's somebody who I know who's really done something bad. It's really like a crime. It's really hurt another person. And I just want to go and strangle them, you know. And I know Baba tells us to have good wishes and pure feelings, so how can I do that? So I paused, because he actually told me what this thing was, very severe. So I paused and I just thought of Baba. And then I just said, well, okay, what would you feel is the best outcome for that soul who's done this thing? And this other person on the other end of the phone paused, said, well, I suppose that they should realize what they've done. They should apologize. They should reform themselves. I said, that's good wishes. Even to think, this is what the best outcome can be. Very different to thinking, they did this, they should be punished, they should. You see? You can change it very simply. And this is really a huge power that I feel we don't use enough. I don't use enough. I try. I know, Daddy says, take that word out of your dictionary. I do. But we don't use this power enough to really transform our thoughts of judgment to the thoughts of what is the solution for a soul, the power of good wishes and pure feelings. And Baba said very clearly in the Murli, everything can be resolved with the power of good wishes and pure feelings. And I see this is how the Daddies work. And I know I've seen others go to Daddy. Now I'm thinking of Daddy Janki, because she's the Daddy I've worked with. I myself have gone to Daddy to say, Daddy, please do something about this soul. And Daddy just said, good wishes. But Daddy... And ultimately, this is what has worked. Because when we try to fix something, people can get hurt in the process. And I had an experience recently, a good few months ago, where I had to go to another centre, and it was to try and resolve a certain situation that was a bit difficult. And at first it was all going very well, and then suddenly it just didn't go well. And afterwards I was reflecting, what happened? And I realised that I'd gone with the attitude of something's wrong and I have to put it right. And I thought, sometimes when you think like that, you're thinking, well, I'm being responsible in Baba's task. I, hear the I. So it was a form of judgment. I learnt a lot from it. And what that other sister said to me at one point, she said, I didn't feel valued in that interaction. And I felt hurt a little, but that was my learning. And I thought, yes, I understand. This has been a great opportunity for me to learn. Even this thought that I have to fix something or something needs to be fixed, that's not good wishes and pure feelings. That's working at things on a very mundane, ordinary level. So Baba wants us to lift our consciousness very much beyond the sanskaras of each other and my own sanskaras. And Daddy said a very interesting thing now while she was here for classes before leaving for the Middle East. She said, we must be very aware not to be impressed by praise and not to be suppressed by defamation. And yes, being impressed by praise, praise is a bit like a magnet, have you seen, and we shouldn't do it, but if you praise someone, you can manipulate them any which way. Praise is very dangerous. To give encouragement is another thing, of course. And there's a lot of purity in that, to give encouragement, to have good wishes, to help people see that vision of where they can go, what their potential is. But when you start praising people unnecessarily or over the top, then you begin to make them dependent on you. Or when others praise you a lot, make sure that you don't get impressed by that praise, so that you begin to become dependent on them. And the defamation part, it's so interesting that Daddy used this term, suppressed by defamation. We take sorrow from defamation if we're affected by it. If we're above it, great, no problem. If we're affected, we take sorrow. But that sorrow suppresses us. And it's I myself, I the soul, who then am suppressing myself. I can never say that someone else suppresses me. It's my own sanskaras. And what is suppression? It's simply this. It's myself not allowing myself to reach the full potential that Baba wants of me. Right? It's nothing from the outside. It's what's happening on the inside. So let me lift myself, have the courage to lift myself out of that. Baba talked about faith in the self. And I feel faith in the self and faith in the family. Of course, all the four faiths are connected, but these two very strongly connected. Because when I have faith in myself, then I have the courage to allow the power to emerge. I allow myself to become strong internally, because we need strength to live in this world. We need strength to be able to serve. We need strength, tremendous strength, to be able to continue to take from Baba and live with good wishes and use the power of good wishes and pure feelings, we need to be very strong inside. And the minute I'm affected, it's a chink in my armour. And when you have inner strength, everything changes. You move out of your struggle. When there's weakness inside, you're in your struggle. When you have inner strength, you move out of your struggle and you can begin to see the solutions, but not just see them, you can actually apply them. Because we can all have the theory of what the solutions are, but we actually begin to apply them. And so let myself be above these things. And when Baba was giving us the drill, and the drill Baba gave us on the 15th, Baba is preparing us for this final and most important form of service, Mansa Seva, the service through the mind. The purity of mind that is needed is incredible for this. I see Daddy Janki, she's always been amazing, but I see her at another level. And in Australia, she talked about this. It was very interesting. She talked about how she really feels she's given her intellect over to Baba, and so her intellect is no longer hers. Now imagine what that means. And she said, if something is given in trust, then I shouldn't use anything that's of my own in that which is given in trust to me. And so there's no room for weak thoughts. And she said at one point, she said, yes, I'm not educated, I've had to learn so much, but I have confidence in myself. And that really touched me. How many of us could say with that purity, that pure feeling, not with arrogance, I have confidence in myself. I have confidence in what it is that Baba is doing through me. Confidence in myself means faith in Baba, basically. But I have confidence in myself as that instrument to be able to reveal what it is that Baba wants. And I always remember this when we were doing these projects, the Million Minutes and Global Cooperation. You all will have heard of them. Some of you were around in those days. It was very new, very different. Now we do lots of things like that. Very new. And there were some people who, some of the seniors who were wondering, what are these people doing, out in foreign countries? Is it the right thing? Da, da, da. The daddies had no question. They just gave us total support. And the reason why I reflected on it much later, they had faith in our bhav, or our pure intention to do something for world service. They didn't know, is this right or not, because it's a worldly kind of thing. How would they know, in a sense, from their experience? But they had faith in us. And something else Daddy said in her class, just recently with the coordinators now, and it's very connected to this whole thing of faith in the family. She said, never have doubts in the self, never have doubts in each other. And she said this line, it's the greatest charity never to have doubts in someone. And all of these were a big mirror for me. And how Daddy at this stage where she is, and it's not that, we shouldn't think the daddies are there and I'm here. We have to reach that stage. It's for all of us. It's never for one person. The stage of perfection was never for one Brahma Baba, was never for 8 daddies, never for 108. It's for everyone. It's up to us, totally up to us. And I see the model of that, not doubting, encouraging, giving support, giving love. And yes, we have to work, we have to be practical, but it's the attitude that's so important. And so being a constant server is about that very pure attitude within. Whatever I'm doing, whoever I'm interacting with, and particularly on the field of service with the Brahmin family, keeping myself free from those doubts and judgments so that the power of good wishes and pure feelings can really work. And I will always remember there was one, I think it was an Amrit Vela point a few years back, where it was something from Baba, where Baba said that service will be completed when at Amrit Vela all of Baba's children sit with the same vibration. And, the same thoughts are one thing, but the same vibration, the purity within, the power of good wishes and pure feelings that are creating one vibration that is a vibration that can literally serve the world and envelop the world. And so I think this is absolutely the time for it. Baba's been telling us when we hear them released from 1971, 40-something years ago. And here we are today in 2009, and we're nearly in 2010. And so, I always say whenever I'm sharing in a gathering, then it's always giving class to myself. It's not to anybody else. Because I know this is what we all need to do. This is where we need to go. So it's the time. And just in the lead up to 12, then we'll break for questions, just share a little bit, because I did have that fortune of being with Daddy in Australia at the Parliament of the World's Religions. And again, talk about vibration. I just saw, and I've seen Daddy in lots of these kind of situations, of course, but in this situation, I just saw how people were responding to her in a very different way, because her vibration was so pure, very, very pure. It was like people were falling at her feet, really, literally. And Daddy was part of several programs there, on a couple of panels. She was, really the main woman spiritual leader with any kind of presence, actually. And she was able to speak in the closing plenary, in which the Dalai Lama also spoke. She had her own morning masterclass in Raj Yoga. She was part of this convocation of Hindu saints from India. So she had 4, 5, 6 different roles within the parliament or opportunities. And people were very, very uplifted. There were a few lovely scenes after Daddy had done her master class. Then there was a couple of rabbis who came out, and the day before they'd been in the saints gathering, and I, of course, hadn't seen, but Sister Arti was translating, and she saw their faces, and they were a bit skeptical. Anyway, they came the next day to the master class, and their faces had completely changed. And one of them is saying to, literally kneeling before her and saying, "In all my life, I have never heard such a clear explanation about God." And I know how much rabbis study every sentence, every word, every letter of the Torah in such depth. And here he is saying, I have never heard such a clear explanation about God. And he was really asking from his heart about how to connect with God. And there was another guy there who was taking film footage, and wanted Daddy to give a message, and it's for the G20 leaders. And he has a mission to bring the messages of spiritual and religious leaders to the G20. And Daddy gave a beautiful message about how it's so important for leaders to work on the basis of truth and love. It's a beautiful message. And when Daddy gave the message in the closing plenary, if you remember, on the 30th of November, when Baba spoke to her, Ramesh Bhai said, she's going to this. Baba spoke to her, and Baba said, The child is very clever at giving the message. She will go and give the message. And Baba said, give them the recognition of time, give them the recognition of the Father. And Daddy said to them literally, it's now time to consider that the drama of life is drawing to a close and it's time to go home. And then she repeated it. She said, messengers have come, or religious founders, or come, religions through the ages have come to give us the message of peace and establish peace on the earth. But now God himself has come to give us this message. It's time to return home. And somebody was asking me yesterday, or today, what do people make of that? And of course it was the closing plenary, so I don't really know how people heard that. She repeated it twice. And then she said, it's the time for us to, have traffic control. Yes, time for us to be free from worry and make others free from worry. So I shared many beautiful things, but it was seeing the response of people that was so special. Okay, I'd like to have some time for questions or comments or whatever. Anyone want to share anything, ask anything? Maybe if there's a microphone at the front, or... Yeah. Okay, the question. Beautiful question. How do you achieve purity of mind? Excuse me. Purity of mind, first of all, has to be based on a very deep practice of soul consciousness. And something that Brahma Baba did with them, in the early days, this was what was very clear for them, the awareness of the soul. And so they would practice very deeply, for hours actually, the awareness of the soul, the consciousness of the soul, of the original qualities of the soul. And we know those qualities: peace, love, purity, happiness, power, wisdom. And particularly at Amrit Vela, if you allow those pure qualities to emerge, it's actually something very natural, because it is actually who we are. It's our original state of being. And all the other ways in which we react, and our sanskars and our consciousness of our different roles and everything else, our body consciousness, of our gender, of our social status, of our relationships, all these things are things that are acquired through the consciousness of the body. But our original state, I'm a soul, I'm a being of peace, my original qualities are peace, love, purity, power, joy, wisdom. And Baba brings us back to this practice again and again. And so that practice, because it starts with a deep contemplation on that concept, and then from the contemplation it becomes a feeling and a realization that this is truly who I really am. And I may play many roles, I may have many activities, but this is truly who I am. And then of course, and Baba has said this a few times in the Murli, that if I'm really in the depth of the consciousness of the original state of the soul, I'm naturally connected with God. I'm naturally in relationship with Baba. And so it's this which is the foundation for purity of mind. Because if that consciousness is there, then what takes me away from purity of mind is the awareness or the thoughts of the external role as being reality. So if I think my external form is the reality of who I am, then I've got away from purity of mind. But if I keep that awareness of who I really am, then I will have that purity of mind in everything that I do. And then that is also, of course, the foundation for good wishes and pure feelings. Because then in that state of consciousness, I actually don't need anything from anyone. When we come into that little bit of judgment or criticism, it's because I have a need of something, whether it's a need for some sort of support, whether it's a need to control, whatever. But there's a little need of mind that comes in. So that purity of mind comes back to that original state of awareness. Thank you. Anything else? You have yeah? Did you have a question, or are you just putting your hand up? No. Okay. Can somebody translate for you?
Я хотел, чтобы сестра Мира объяснила, что такое для двойных иностранцев двойные усилия. Как понять двойные усилия? Я понимаю так, что двойные усилия – это то, что мы в других странах, и это все равно, что мы делаем, это уже само собой является двойное. Ну как сестра Мира объяснит, что такое двойное?
Thank you. Very good question.
The question about double Purusharthi, how you understand and explain this topic?
Okay. Tivra Purusharth, that means intense effort. Baba calls us now double intense effort makers. Can I explain it? Okay, part of what we've been talking about is that level of effort. But you know this word Tivra, I know hard to pronounce, Purusharth, we kind of translate it as intense, but actually what it means is it's speed with increasing velocity. It's effort at increasing speed. Am I right? Looking at Bridgman. Something that's going fast, but the speed is increasing. Right? Now, we say intense, but that's actually what it means. And it's very interesting, this term, because you'll know yourself in life, generally, that it's much easier to be successful than to fail. All right? You know, once you get onto a role of success, it's easy, it continues. If you're failing, you're always struggling. And so Baba wants us to come into that line of effort. And okay, use the term effort, but you know, it's actually, even the word effort can seem a strenuous word. But to work in such a way in our self-progress so that we get onto that line where things become easier and easier and things gather momentum. So even if we start in a little way, but if it's very pure and very clean and very sincere, then it'll gather momentum. And before we know it, we'll achieve a lot in a short space of time. That's the kind of effort Baba wants us to make. And for that we need to pay, a lot of attention. And I think, I've mentioned this before, there were 4 levels that Daddy talked about once a few years ago about effort, and it made a lot of sense. One is effort, which is like effort, you know, you're doing something, making it happen, getting yourself to a certain point. Then the next level is attention, which is a little bit easier. you're not struggling in any way, you're just paying attention to something. Okay. But even that takes attention, takes a little bit of, energy. The next level is awareness. Now, when something's in your awareness, you don't actually have to consciously make it happen, you're aware of it. For example, you're all aware of your name, of the body. So if I say Lalita, you don't have to think, she's sitting in the front, just a minute, let me look up. Oh yeah, I'm Lalita. It's natural, isn't it? No effort. It's in your awareness. So awareness is something much more powerful. You don't have to think. It's your awareness, and you enjoy that awareness naturally. And then the next level, Shan, or my honor or dignity. And this is a very beautiful concept, that whatever Baba has made me, it's now bringing me royalty and dignity in my stage. And how Baba says about the deities, Devta, the ones who give. And a royal person will always give, won't touch anything. I remember seeing, this is sort of Kali Yugi version, being in one country, and there was a royal princess, and she gave a speech, and then she just went to give the piece of paper to the person behind her. I didn't find it very royal, actually. But when there's that royalty, real royalty, it's like, everything is there naturally, and you're a giver. That you can't do, but there's nothing else but to give, because whatever you've taken from Baba is so deep in you, so part of you. Again, the daddies are the examples. They can't stay without giving. There's nothing else for them. And so, when I think about intense effort, I think Baba's bringing us to that point where we are so much the embodiment of everything that Baba is teaching us. And to do that, Baba's just given us the methods. And Baba's given us the drill. And I have to admit, I haven't been able to do 24 times. Shouldn't admit it, but I'm on my way. But Baba's given us the method. And either we can say, 24 times, just do it. That famous slogan, just do it. And that's the thing. To be an intense effort maker, don't think, just do it, actually. And then it will start to do itself. And it will start to gather momentum. So don't make it intense in yourself. Understand how the easy nature of that concept of intense effort making. Does that help? Anything else? No more questions? Really? Okay, that's good. Sure? Okay, we can close a little early, nothing wrong with that. But just a little further reflection. I'm just aware that the whole aspect of faith is so important. And a question, can we be number wise in faith? Baba giving us the indication, there is number wise in faith. But I like to say to myself, faith means faith. If I choose to be totally faithful to Baba, then I move from number wise to number one. And number one isn't a competition. Baba has said that, Baba will make the rosary longer, so that can be a few strands of the rosary, not just one. And so don't feel that there's anything that is unavailable to us in terms of attainment, no matter what our situation, no matter how long we've been with Baba, whatever it is. There's nothing that's unavailable to us. And I've seen if a soul has a pure desire, a pure thought, a pure intention, then Baba will bring that soul from nowhere into the heart of the family, if the soul has that pure intention and pure thought, and doesn't want to be, it was the other day's Murli, wasn't it, about having this dilemma in yourself. Do I have a foot in two boats? That's a very uncomfortable position to be in. But if I say, I'm putting my feet in Baba's boat, I don't lose anything. I don't lose any relationships. I don't lose any family members. I don't lose any friends. I don't lose anything. But I lose the sorrow. And I lose the attachment. And I lose the fear. Daddy gave a lovely definition of detachment. Detachment means never allowing sorrow to enter your heart. So it's not about losing anything, but I become the bestower. I become the giver. And Baba will enable that for me. Whatever is my pure thought, Baba will enable that for me. Have faith in that. Okay. Om Shanti, let's have Baba's remembrance and... Okay, thank you. Oh, there's an announcement, maybe? Thank you. Okay, so those of you who gave your names to be part of the cultural program on 26th evening, so day after tomorrow, then please meet Sister Shilu in the meditation hall today, downstairs meditation hall today at 5:30 p.m. Okay? And then actually I will make another announcement so you can be prepared. Tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier in the morning, that we will be going down to Shantiwan to celebrate Christmas. But before that, we would like help because the International Youth Forum always takes place in the meditation hall, and so we need to clear that hall of all the chairs, and the chairs are quite heavy. And so particularly from our strong brothers, we would need some help immediately after class tomorrow. So just so you're prepared, and strong sisters can help too, of course, no problem. So straight after Murli finishes and meditation finishes, before breakfast, if we come, however many can come to the meditation hall, then it can all be done in 20 to 30 minutes very easily if there's a whole army that can help, as they do every year. So we'll announce again tomorrow, but would like your help for that. Okay, thank you. Om Shanti.